He wedged the crowbar under the swollen plank, leaned his weight in, and the stable door cracked like old bone. Wood split. Dust poured from the seam. Something deeper spilled with it. Damp, rust-tinged air, thick with the rot of forgotten things. He stepped inside. The crowbar stayed in his hand. "Smells like Pa," he muttered. His voice didn't echo. It got swallowed. He moved slowly, boots brushing past empty feed sacks and broken bridles. The stalls were gutted. No horses, no rats, just silence. Then his foot hit it, a smear dark and dried beneath years of dust, under the same saddle that had always hung above the hook. He crouched, swiped once. Blood, not rust, still brown, still shaped like a drag mark. He stood again and looked at the wall, the same stable his father had built when he was 18. The same saddle Pa never let anyone ride, same nail marks in the beam where the kids used to scratch out their names. But now there was something else. Right above the saddle, carved deep, ragged, barely readable if you weren't looking close. If you're reading this, we're still waiting. He stared, didn't blink. "What the hell?" His voice cracked in the dust. He reached up, ran his fingers over the carving. Splinters bit in. He pulled back, wiped his palm. Splinters are still stuck. "Who wrote it?" he whispered. He turned, half expecting someone to answer. Only the stable stared back. He backed out the door and leaned against the frame. The heat outside felt cleaner. His chest didn't. He stayed there a while. Then a sound rose behind him, boots crunching gravel. He knew the rhythm. He didn't turn. "You still limp." "I still do." The voice answered. "Sheriff send you?" "No sheriff, no more. Just me." He turned now. Same boy, just older, longer jaw, bad leg, badge hanging crooked like it didn't know where it belonged. "Deputy. Name's Eli now." "I didn't ask." Eli looked past him into the stable. Pa used to keep salt blocks in the corner. He kept other things too. "Like what?" "Blood, names, carvings." Eli didn't smile. "The place needs tearing down." "No." "Why not?" "It's mine now." Eli kicked a rock with his bad foot. "You always were the kind to dig where things should stay buried." He let the silence sit. Then Eli said, "We heard noises up here. You hear noises everywhere. Number this was different." "What kind?" Eli didn't answer, just looked again at the door. Then he said, "If you find anything unnatural, you come to me." He didn't nod. Eli limped away. He stood there until the gravel stopped talking. Then he went back inside. The message waited for him. He lit a match. Hold it up to the words. "We're still waiting." He remembered the sound of his sister's boots climbing these rafters when she was 9. She'd hum in the hay, pretend she was a ghost bride. She vanished a week after their mother's funeral. People said she ran. Pa said nothing, just shut the stable door and never opened it again. He walked deeper in. The dust made his throat sting. He coughed once, leaned on the crowbar. A loose plank squealed under his boot. He paused, pressed down again. Hollow. He knelt, dug fingers under the edge, lifted slow. A floorboard popped free. Below, dirt. And under that, cloth. He reached in, pulled. A patchwork quilt, stiff with age, one corner stitched in pale blue. A name, Clem. He stopped breathing. His sister's name. The fabric was wet. He touched it on his cheek. Cold. And then, "Don't leave us." The voice came soft, thin, like wind against a tin sheet. He froze. "Clem?" he whispered. Silence. Then again faint from the dirt. "Mama said you'd come." He dropped the quilt. The crowbar clanged. He scrambled back, hit the stall door. The whisper faded. He didn't move for a long time. Then he picked up the crowbar, brushed off the dust, and left the quilt folded on the floor. He walked out into the yard like he was trying not to wake someone. That night, he sat on the porch, listening. Owls called. The wind stirred dry leaves. And from the stable, deep inside, something knocked once on wood, then twice, then nothing. He didn't sleep. By morning, the sky had turned white, and the crows had moved on. He walked back to the stable. I opened the door slowly. The quilt was gone. In its place, lying flat on the dirt where the floorboard used to be, a single piece of thread, red, unraveled, still warm. He didn't touch it. He looked back at the wall. The carving hadn't changed, but the saddle above it. It was clean now. No dust, no blood, like someone had wiped it in the night. He whispered, "Who's waiting?" The stable didn't answer. Only a wind passed through the slats, brushing his cheek with something that smelled like dirt and candle smoke. He turned, looked behind him, but saw no one. Still holding the crowbar, he stepped out again. Down by the gravel path, someone was watching. A woman in a dark shawl, too far to see her face. He called, "Who are you?" She didn't answer. He moved toward her. "Did you write it?" Still nothing. He took another step. The wind kicked up dust. By the time he got to the bend in the path, she was gone. Only the gravel remembered her footsteps, and the faint scent of something burned. Back at the stable, he closed the door behind him. This time, he didn't need the crowbar. It swung shut like it had always been meant to close. He dropped the crowbar, sat against the wall, rested his head back until the carved words pressed against his skull. "If you're reading this," his voice cracked, "we're still waiting." He stared at the rafters and whispered, "Then I'll stay." He closed his eyes, and somewhere below the floor, a needle passed through the cloth. Once, twice, again. He dropped to his knees, heart hammering like it used to when Pa called his name sharp. The dirt was damp again, darker now. He didn't remember the rain. He scraped with both hands. Fingers caught something soft, frayed. He pulled gently. A corner of a quilt, the same blue thread, the same name. Clem. He whispered, "Is it really you?" Nothing answered. He kept pulling. Slow. The earth gave it up, piece by piece, like it didn't want to let go. The cloth came loose, half covered in mold and mud. Patterns faded. Some parts are eaten through. Still, he could feel her hands in the stitches. He laid it flat across his lap. Then it came. A whisper. So soft it could have been a draft, but it wasn't. It said, "Don't leave me here." He froze. "Clem?" No answer. He turned his head. Silence. He pressed the quilt to his chest. The dirt shifted near his foot. He leaned down, pressed his ear to the floor. "Are you there?" he whispered. The voice came again, clearer now, younger. "It's cold." He shut his eyes. "You're not real," he muttered, but the voice didn't stop. "You took too long." He gripped the quilt tighter. "You said you'd come." His jaw clenched. "I didn't know where you went." "You didn't look." "I looked everywhere." "You didn't dig." The floor creaked. He sat up, looked around the stall. Then he whispered, "Where are you?" The voice was right under him. "Down." He grabbed the crowbar again, jammed it into the floorboard gap, pulled. Another board popped loose, then another. He shoved them aside, dug with his bare hands. Something scraped his nail. Metal, a button. He pulled it free. A child's coat button, yellow. He whispered, "I remember this." "Don't stop," the voice said. So he didn't. He kept digging. More cloth. Another quilt square. Then a boot. Small. Leather cracked and green. Then something else. A paper. Soaked through. Barely legible, but the name was still there. Mama. He touched it. Cold. Too cold. His hands shook. He whispered, "Clem, what did they do?" But the voice was gone. Only the smell of dirt and rain lingered. He sat back. The stall looked gutted. The floor opened like a wound. The quilt rested beside him, still damp, still warm. A breeze moved through the stable, and with it, a sound. Footsteps. He grabbed the crowbar, held still. The door creaked. A shadow moved across the far wall. He stood slowly. "Who's there?" No answer. He stepped into the center of the stable. "Say something." Still silent. Then a whisper behind him. "Mama." He turned. No one. Just the saddle on the beam. The message above it. "If you're reading this, we're still waiting." His heart pounded again. The voice was smaller this time, like a child trying to remember how to speak. "Mama. Mama's here." He stepped back toward the stall. The floor was still open. He said, "I'm not her." "Mama said you'd come." He dropped the crowbar. "I'm not her." "You left." "I was 12. "You left." Tears burned his eyes. "I didn't know." The voice whispered again. She was crying. He knelt. "Who hurt you?" The dirt didn't answer. He reached for the button again, clutched it. "I'll find out." The air thickened, like breath. He stood. I walked to the stable wall, touched the words. The old scratches were deeper now, fresh around the edges. He whispered, "Did you write this?" The wind passed again. A soft rustle. Then, "She did." He turned sharply. No one, just the hay stacked in the back, untouched for years. He walked slowly toward it. Behind the bales, something glinted. He pushed one aside, a broken sewing needle, and a small spool of red thread. He picked them up, held them in his palm. "You stitched the message." No voice answered, but the stable creaked once, and then a sound like a breath against his ear. She waited. He whispered, "Where is she now?" No answer, only a hum. Faint. Familiar. The same one Clem used to sing when she spun in the field. He stepped back, thread still in hand. He whispered, "I'm here now." The hum faded. He looked at the beam again, at the saddle, at the words. He touched the thread to the carved letters. It fits inside them. Perfect, like it had been pulled straight from here. He whispered, "I won't leave again." Behind him, the wind stopped. Silence returned, but the dirt beneath the floor still felt warm. The quilt was still clutched in his hand when he heard it. Boots on gravel, slow and uneven. One step heavy, one dragging. He didn't turn, just listened. The boots stopped, 10 feet back. "I figured you'd come back," the man said. He stood slowly, kept his hand on the quilt. "You figured wrong." The man laughed once, dry. "You always said that." He turned now, faced him. The limp was worse than before, left leg twisted, badge clipped crooked on a cracked leather belt. "Eli." "You remember." "I remember your limp more." Eli glanced at the stable door. "This place is still standing, huh?" "Not for long if the floor keeps talking." Eli didn't flinch. "You found something." "I found everything." "Then you know why I'm here." "You're late." Eli walked forward slower now, stopped at the threshold. "I won't step in." "Didn't say you could." "You always were your father's son." He looked down at the quilt. "He's the reason this place breathes differently." Eli's eyes moved to the patchwork. "Is that hers?" "Stitched her name in blue." Eli shifted his weight. "My mother helped her piece that." He looked up, sharp. "What?" "They used to sew in the kitchen, before everything." He held the quilt tighter. "So why'd you let them bury her?" Eli's jaw twitched. "I was a kid." "You're still hiding." "I'm not hiding. I came to warn you." "About what?" Eli looked past him into the dark stable. "Don't dig too deep." "That's supposed to scare me?" "It's not a threat." "Sounds like one." Eli's voice lowered. "It's a fact. This land remembers." He stepped forward. "Don't," he said. "I'm just looking." I said don't. Eli stopped. "I hear things too," Eli said. "Always have." He didn't speak. Eli nodded toward the stable wall. "The message. It was for you." "I know." "She scratched it with a nail." "I saw the blood." "She waited." "I know that too." Eli sighed. "Pa told me to keep folks out. After she disappeared." "She didn't disappear." "I know." "She was put here." Eli stared at the floorboards. "It wasn't just her." He didn't move. Eli's voice dropped. "You think this is about one girl. It's not. So tell me." Eli looked like he was swallowing rocks. "They used the barn. For years. Folks who talked too much. Women who said no." His chest burned. "How many?" "I don't know." "How many?" "At least 6. Maybe more." "And you said nothing." "I was 12. My father made me watch." He stepped back. "You're just like him." "I'm not." "You wear his badge." Eli pulled the badge off, dropped it in the dirt. "I didn't come to protect them. I came to face it." He didn't speak. Eli looked him dead in the eye. "You hear her too, don't you?" He nodded once. "She calls you brother." "She calls for Mama." Eli's mouth tightened. "She used to say Mama sang in the quilts." He closed his eyes. "She did." Eli pointed at the floor. "They're not resting." "I know." "They want something." "What do they want?" Eli's voice cracked. "They want to be seen." He let the silence sit, then said, "Help me dig." Eli shook his head. "No." "Why?" "You dig. You wake it all." "It's already awake." Eli's face darkened. "Have you ever heard a mother scream after her child's buried under wood?" He blinked hard. "I have," Eli whispered. "At 3 a.m. every night for 20 years. He looked down. Eli's voice shook. "Don't dig too deep. Some things down there still breathe." He turned to leave, but before he did, he said one last thing. "She stitched your name too, right under hers." And then he limped away. Eli's boots faded down the gravel, one step dragging behind, but he didn't look back. His hand lingered too long on the stable wall before it slipped away. He stood in the silence after, not moving. The wind came through the rafters. The quilt was still warm in his arms. He looked at the floor, then dropped to his knees. The crowbar was nearby, left leaning against the post. He shoved it beneath the next loose board and heaved. The wood cracked. Dust spilled. He pulled the board free. Underneath, more dirt and something wrapped in oilcloth. He reached in. I pulled it out slowly. Pages. Folded, yellowed, frayed along the edges. The top one was addressed in small handwriting, faint but steady. To Mama. He sat back. The quilt pooled in his lap. His hands shook. He unfolded the first page. Dear Mama, he says you ain't coming back, but I hear you at night. You're under the house. You knock on the pipes. I knocked back. I don't think he hears, but I do. His throat closed. He reached for the next one. It's getting colder now. The barn smells like wet fur and rust. I don't sleep well anymore. I wrap myself in what's left of the quilt. The red squares stained now. It wasn't me. He set it aside. Next, he told me to stop talking to you. He says you're gone. But I saw your shoe behind the well house. The blue one. I know it was yours. He burned it. I saw him. I smelled it too. He gripped the paper hard. Another letter. Eli came by. He saw the bruises, but didn't speak. He looked scared, said his daddy was worse, said they used the stable before, said no one will talk. He rubbed his eyes. The barn creaked, but nothing moved. Next page. Sometimes I hear other voices. Not just you, little ones. A girl I never met hums at night. She said her mama was called Ruthie. There's more here than me. Another. It's hard to eat. He brings me old things. Spoiled things. I stopped asking where the meat came from. It doesn't taste right. I keep a part of the bread in my pocket. The rats don't come anymore. He swallowed hard. Hands shaking now. I miss the field. I miss Mama singing. I miss Sunday. I miss real water. I miss light. I miss the good sounds. I miss feeling like a girl and not a ghost. The pages were stained, some with dirt, some maybe not. I stitched your name into the last quilt square. Mama. I used red thread. It was all I had. I kept the needle under my tongue for days. He stopped, closed his eyes. The floor creaked again. He didn't move. Open the next one. I think I'll be next. I heard them digging last night. He thinks I'm asleep. I'm not. I never sleep. I pretend. I count the steps. 4 to the door, 3 to the wall, 2 to the nail. I keep it sharp. He looked up. The nail in the wall caught light through a cracked board. He looked back down. He says, I talk in my sleep. He says Mama's voice comes through my mouth. Maybe that's true. Maybe she never left. Maybe I'm just the shell she uses to scream. A sudden gust shoved the stable door half shut. He didn't flinch. Another page. There's another girl on the floor. She doesn't speak, but I feel her. She's stitched into the wood. Her. Name's beneath the plank. I don't say it out loud. He might hear. He reached for the next. I don't bleed anymore. I think my body's forgetting how to be alive. I keep seeing birds that aren't there. Blue feathers fall through the cracks. I collect them. Next page. There's no more paper. I am writing about clothes now. If you find this, burn the saddle. That's where he hides the other names, the ones no one speaks. He stared at the saddle, still hung on its old hook. Still untouched. He turned the last page over. It was stitched. Thread pulled through the paper. The words were slower, more jagged, like her hand was broken or stiff. We're cold. Come get us. Please. He let the letter fall. His hands gripped the edge of the open floor. He whispered, I'm here. No voice answered, just wind. He leaned forward and looked back into the hollow. The cloth that had wrapped the letters was gone. Nothing but earth. He whispered again. I came back. Still nothing. He stood, the papers clutched tight. I walked to the saddle, pulled it down, heavy, dry, cracked. He flipped it, something inside. He dug into the lining, pulled out a scrap of fabric, another stitched name. Not Clem, Ruthie, then another, Joelle, then one more. This one had 2 names, Willa, sheriff's girl. He sat on the floor, laid them all out. The wind pushed the stable door wide open. Outside, gravel shifted. He didn't move. He stared at the stitched names until the sun dropped behind the trees, until the dirt beneath the floorboard stopped breathing. He read the last letter again under the weak spill of oil lamplight. The words were stitched crooked across the page, thread fraying at the ends. "We're cold. Come get us, please." His thumb brushed over it. The paper felt thin, wet in spots where his eyes had run. He sat alone on the floor of the stable. The floorboards gaped beside him, dirt still soft. Pages of Clem's voice laid out like bodies. Each one is silent now, then a flicker. He looked up. The lamp didn't move, but something blinked in the window glass. Orange, then gone. He rose slowly. I walked toward it, peered out. The barn across the ridge, the one they used for hay, the one nobody lived in for 15 years, glowed. A small pulsing light from within. Not fire, not steady. Something alive, like breathing behind a curtain. He grabbed the lamp, crossed the yard. Grass crunched underfoot, cold rising up through his boots. He moved slowly past the well house. The barn loomed tall and sunken, its roof caved inward near the back. As he neared, the light inside blinked again, then held. He ducked under the hanging door and stepped in. His breath left him. Quilts, dozens, hung from rafter to rafter like drying laundry, threaded with names, stitched in reds and faded purples. Some squares burned, some torn. They swayed gently, though there was no wind. He stepped between them. Then he heard it. A steady pull, thread sliding through cloth. He followed it. Behind a bale near the far corner, someone sat on a stool, face turned down, hands working needle and thread, small, thin arms, dress too big for the shoulders it clung to. He whispered, "Clem?" The girl didn't look up. He took a step closer. She paused, thread clenched in one hand, the needle held midair. She spoke without turning. "Do you remember the blue square?" His voice caught. "Yes. That was Mama's apron." "I know. You burned it." "Number that was—" "She screamed when it burned. You just stood there." "I was a kid." "So was I." She kept sewing. He moved around to face her. It wasn't Clem, not exactly. Same age she was when she vanished. Same freckles, same eyes. But this face didn't belong to time. Her hands were raw, fingers dark at the tips. "You're not her," he said. She looked up. "No," she said softly. "I'm what's left." He crouched down. "What are you sewing?" "The last names." "Whose?" "Yours." He froze. "You're still alive." "Not all of me." She pulled the needle through, tightened the thread. He reached forward. She pulled back. "Don't touch it yet." "Why?" "You haven't finished remembering." He stood. I looked around the barn. The quilts whispered as they swayed. "I remember her. I remember Sunday dresses. I remember her humming." She nodded. "That's the first part. I remember Pa's boots outside the door." She looked up again. "I remember the way he grabbed her. Her hands stilled. I remember the blood in the basin." "Say the rest." He swallowed. "I saw the knife in his belt." "And?" "I didn't tell anyone." "You told yourself she ran." "I did." "You helped him nail the door shut." He looked away. "You watched her fingers try to claw back through." He whispered, "Stop." "No." Tears filled his eyes. She kept sewing. "You hear them now," she said. "Every stitch you pull, they whisper." He nodded. "They asked for you." "I know." "They said you'd forgotten." "I didn't forget." "Then why'd it take so long?" "I was scared." "So were they." He looked down at her hands. The thread trailed from the needle into a square that read, "Mama." Below it, another half-finished name, his own. He asked, "Why me?" "You saw." "I was a boy." "So were they." She tied off the thread. "Now you stitch." He stepped back. "I don't know how." "You don't need to." She held the needle out. He took it. His hand trembled. "Sit." He sat. She moved aside. He looked down. The fabric was soft but firm. The square he'd touched was warm. She whispered, "Say it while you sew." "What?" "The names." He took the thread, pushed it through once. "Clem." Again. "Joelle." Again. "Willa." His voice broke. "Sheriff's girl." She touched his shoulder. "You remember now." He dropped the needle. She caught it. He looked up. The barn glowed brighter, but there was no flame, only the light of something being seen. "What do I do now?" he asked. She whispered, "Finish the quilt." "For who?" "For the ones still waiting." He looked down again. The last square was blank, but his hand wasn't. It knew the shape. She handed him a red thread. He began to sew. He pushed open the barn door expecting cold and rot, but what poured out was warmth, the kind that didn't come from fire. The quilts were still there, dozens of them strung from beam to beam, moving like breath. He stepped inside. The air didn't smell like dust. It smelled like cotton, thread, salt. He walked slowly, hands grazing the edges of cloth. They whispered when he touched them, not words, not voices, just weight. He passed one stitched with his sister's name, Clem. Red thread, thin lettering, tight corners like her handwriting. The next, Joelle. Then Marla. Then one that stopped him. His own name. He stared at it, fingers hovering. The stitching was neater than the others, sharper. The needle had moved slowly here, careful. He whispered, "Who stitched this?" A voice behind him. "You did." He turned. The girl stood near the loom. Same one from last night. Same small frame. Same soft voice. She didn't smile, just watched him. "You came back," she said. "I had to." "You remember now?" "Pieces." "That's enough." He looked back at the quilt with his name. "Why would I be here?" "Because they saw you." "Saw me do what?" "Nothing." He winced. She walked past him, lifted a new piece of cloth, laid it on the table. "You knew," she said. "I didn't know enough." "You saw enough." He stepped forward. "I didn't hurt her." "But you didn't stop it." "I was a kid." "So were they." He lowered his head. Her fingers moved again, needle pulling, thread tightening. "You're not here for forgiveness?" she said. "No. You're here to stitch." He looked around the barn, all the quilts half finished, names floating like ghosts. "How many?" he asked. "Too many." They were all yes. He swallowed. She held out a thread. Red again. "Start here," she said. He took it. Saturday laid a blank square across his knees. He stared at it. "Whose name?" She didn't look up. "Yours again." "But it's already there." "Not finished." He hesitated. "What's the last letter?" She whispered. "The one you never said." He began to stitch, hands shaking, eyes burning. The needle went in and out. Every loop pulled something up. A face, a voice, a sound he'd buried. "You saw what they did to her," she said. "Yes." "You stayed quiet." "I told myself she ran." "She didn't." "I know that now." He kept sewing. "Joelle screamed," she said. "I heard." "She knocked on the stable wall 3 times." "I remember." "You didn't answer." "No." He finished the square. His name again, this time with an extra letter, a curl of thread that wasn't there before. The girl nodded. "Now stitch hers." "Clem?" "No." She pointed. A small square rested in the pile, clean, white, no stains. He picked it up. The name came to him slowly. "Ruthie." "She came first," the girl said. He stitched it carefully. "What happened to her?" The needle paused. "She said no." He clenched his jaw. "No one believed her," she said. He pulled the thread through. "They never do." She nodded. "That's why we sew." Another name followed, Delia, then Marnie. Each stitch burned, but each one steadied his hand. He whispered, "Was this always here?" "Yes." "Waiting for me?" "Number, waiting for anyone." He looked up. "Why me then?" "You listened." He paused. Her voice softened. "You stayed." "I wanted to leave." "But you didn't." He finished Marnie. She handed him a final square. There was already a letter on it. Just one. L. He looked at her. "Who's this?" She looked at the quilts. They never found her name. Just the locket. He held the square tighter. What was in it? A photograph of a boy. He stared. The barn fell quiet. "You knew her?" she asked. "I think I do now." He stitched the rest of the name. Slowly. Lena. The barn grew warmer. The quilts swayed softer. Outside, wind brushed against the boards. He leaned back. The thread fell from his fingers. She stood beside him. "You did it," she said. "No." "You stayed." He nodded. "That's enough for tonight," she said. The sewing stopped, and the barn breathed quiet again. He stayed long after the girl disappeared into the cloth. The barn breathed quieter now, but it didn't sleep. He walked the row of quilts again, one by one, brushing his fingers over names. Delia, Marnie, Ruthie, Clem. Then he saw it, a square above his, older thread, brighter red, finer needlework than the others. 2 letters, curved, clean. E.G. He froze. His mouth went dry. He whispered, Eliza. He knew that thread. It was hers, the governor's daughter. She used to ride past his father's field on a dappled gray, chin high, mouth set like stone. She'd barely speak, but when she did, it was sharp, quick. She vanished the summer he turned 13. They said she'd gone east, school, sanatorium. Some said Europe, some said put away. He stared at the square again. Why would her name be here? He whispered. The barn didn't answer. He turned. I looked around the rafters. All the quilts were still, waiting. He walked to the far side. The back wall leaned harder near collapse. There, hung at an angle, was another quilt, larger, torn along one edge. It had symbols, not just names, patterns he didn't recognize. The sun, a blade, a small box stitched shut. He touched the corner. The thread there was black, and then he saw it, another set of initials tucked near the bottom seam. E.G. again. He stepped back. Then a voice. You found her square. He turned. The girl was behind him again, standing beside the hay shelf. He asked, Why is her name here? She made the first quilt. Eliza. She was 13 when she came. She's the governor's daughter. She was. He stepped closer. She's dead. No. Where is she? The girl tilted her head. Where they sent all the girls who said no. Where? The hill, past the water line, north of the graveyard. I thought that place burned. It did. He looked back at the stitched symbols. She sewed this? Yes. Why symbols? She couldn't write what they did to her, so she taught herself to stitch it. He moved toward the hay shelf. They said she lied. She didn't. They said she was touched. She was. He looked back. Touched by him, the girl said. He didn't speak. The girl added, Your father was one of the men who kept her quiet. He stepped back again. No, he said. She nodded. He helped cover it. He felt the sweat rise up his neck. She moved to the quilt. This one. This is what she made after. What do the symbols mean? You already know. He stared at the black thread, the box, the sun, the blade. I saw this once, he said, on her wrist. The girl nodded. She stitched it into her skin before they took her. He whispered, God. She wanted to remember, even when they drugged her. She said pain would keep it alive. He turned to the hay shelf. The boards behind it looked loose. He pulled them aside. Dust poured out, and something small fell to the ground, a locket. He picked it up, silver, heavy. He opened it. On one side, the governor's family crest. On the other, a lock of hair, blood brown, tied with red thread. He shut his eyes. The girl said, She left that here, so someone will find her. He whispered, I thought she was lying. Everyone did. You didn't see the bruises. I did. You didn't ask why. I was told not to. He opened the locket again. Stared. She was the first one, the girl said, but not the last. He looked back at the quilt. She made this before she vanished? She slept right here, on that blanket, in this barn. He whispered, They said she was dangerous. She was. To who? To them. He clenched the locket in his hand. She remembered every name, the girl said. She sewed them before they disappeared. He turned back to the square above him. E.G. She tried to warn us, he said. The girl nodded, and no one listened. He stepped toward the quilt again. Why now? She's still waiting. For what? For someone to say her name out loud, without fear. He looked at the thread, the initials, the sun, the box, the blade. He whispered, Eliza. The barn creaked. The wind pressed through the beams. The quilt swayed once, and something shifted behind the cloth. Not a voice, not yet, but the sound of thread moving through skin. The locket weighed heavy in his hand as he stepped through weeds taller than his waist. The grass here grew thicker, meaner. It tugged at his jeans, scratched the skin behind his knees. He knew the path, though no one called it one. Just a break in the brush where the ground dipped and refused to grow anything good. He walked toward the back end of the graveyard, past the known names, past the carved stones and iron crosses, Past the rows the town still remembered, back where no one brought flowers. The trees got denser, the wind is quieter. There, in the shade of an old oak, he found it. A mound of dirt, sunk slightly, no marker. At the base, folded neat and square, was a baby-sized quilt. He crouched. The stitching was pale, clumsy, the edges curled. The cloth is damp. He reached for it, then paused. A sound behind him. He turned. A woman in a shawl stood at the tree line, still, watching. He rose slowly. "Are you following me?" She said nothing. "Who are you?" Her face was in shadow. He took a step forward. "You are at the stable and the barn." Still no answer. "What do you want?" She finally spoke. "You're the one with the thread." He swallowed. "I've got a lot of threads now." "You've used some." "I've stitched 6 names." "Not hers." He looked back at the grave. "No name to stitch," he said. "She was born in silence, buried in silence. I didn't know her." "You knew the man." His chest tightened. "What man?" "Your father." He didn't respond. The woman stepped closer. She wasn't his only. He looked down. The quilt sat like it had just been placed, still warm at the corners. "She was born in that barn," the woman said. 2 winters ago." He whispered. "That barn's been empty for years." "No," she said. "It never was." He turned to her. "You're not real." "I'm as real as the thread you carry." "What was her name?" The woman looked past him to the dirt. "She didn't get one." He stepped closer. "Who was her mother?" The woman raised her eyes. "She was." He followed her gaze to the top of the tree. There, tied around a limb, was a scrap of red cloth, dangling in the wind. His breath caught. He knew that. Cloth. It had been part of the barn quilt. She hung it there the night the baby died, the woman said. He felt a cold creep into his back. She waited for someone to come. The woman continued. "No one did," he whispered. "Why?" "Because she said no. Because she didn't believe me. Because the men wore uniforms and carried keys." He turned back to the quilt. "It's damp," he said. "She still waits." He crouched again, reached for the edge, lifted it. It smelled like milk, smoke, something sweet. He unfolded it. Inside, stitched in faint red, was one word. Not a name. "Yours." He stared. "Who stitched this?" The woman's voice softened. "She did." "She was a girl." "She stitched while she bled." His throat tightened. "She said if no one claimed her, maybe he would." He stood slowly. "She meant you," the woman said. He held the quilt in his arms. It was lighter than he expected. He turned to the woman, but she was gone. No sound, no footsteps, only the cloth in his hands. He looked back at the grave, still no name. He stepped forward, dropped to one knee, laid the quilt back down, then reached into his pocket, pulled out the red thread, unraveled it. "Okay," he whispered. He dug the needle through the edge, careful, slow. One stitch, then another. He didn't know what to write, so he wrote what she wrote. "Yours." Beneath it, he added one more. "Seen." The wind picked up. The red scrap in the tree spun once. The ground beneath him didn't feel cold anymore, just quiet. He sat back. I looked at the quilt one more time. Still damp, still warm. She moved through the woods like she belonged there. He followed, breath tight, heart thudding harder than it should. "Slow down," he called. She didn't. The shawl trailed behind her, brushing branches, stirring dust. Moonlight cut through gaps in the canopy, catching only the edges of her figure. He caught up when she stopped in a clearing. No words, just a stillness so thick it made his throat close. "What is this place?" he asked. She pointed to the ground. He looked. Graves. Not like town ones. No stone. No names. No flowers. 12 shallow mounds curved in a perfect circle, each marked with a single nail pressed into wood. Some bent. Some rusted, a piece of cloth tied around each. He whispered, "Children?" She didn't answer. He knelt beside one. The nail was black. The cloth faded blue, frayed like a dress sleeve. He looked around the circle again. "Why here?" "They weren't allowed in the town graveyard," she said. "Because no one claimed them?" "Number because someone would have to explain why they were dead." He stood slowly. "Are these all girls?" "Yes." "From the barn?" Some from other places." He turned in a slow circle. "Why a ring?" They were made to disappear together, so they're buried together. He moved to the next grave. The nail here was still sharp. He pulled out the red thread from his coat. I want to name them, he said. You don't know their names. I know enough. He knelt, tied a knot around the sharp nail. The thread held. He looked at the next one. Why nails? It's what they had. He knelt again, wrapped another thread. Feels wrong. It should. He glanced up at her. You buried them? No. Who did? The ones who couldn't live with what they'd done. He swallowed. Men? She nodded. Not all monsters. Some broke. He tied another thread. She stepped around the circle. Her feet didn't break twigs, didn't shift leaves. He whispered, You're not just a woman. No. Who are you? She looked at him. I'm what's left when no one listens. He sat back. You were one of them. I still am. He looked at the center of the ring. Why no grave there? She walked toward it. That's for the ones who never made it out. He rose. You mean the unborn? She touched her stomach. We stitched their names into the air. He closed his eyes. The woods fell silent. No crickets, no wind. Then he heard it from behind one of the mounds. A whisper, barely sound. He turned. Nothing there. Did you hear that? He asked. They speak here. Always. Only when seen. He took a slow breath. The message. The one in the stable. I've seen it again. Where? He pointed at one of the graves. On the nail, etched shallow. We're still waiting. He knelt, touched it. The metal burned. He pulled back. I looked at his palm. A small red line. The woman said, That one belongs to the girl who carved it first. Eliza? Number earlier. Was there someone before her? There always was. He stared at the nail. The message felt older than everything else. He whispered, How many others? More than we'll ever count. He stood. I walked to the center. If I dig here, what would I find? She looked at him. Bones, clothes, and maybe one last thread that never broke. He looked at the circle. Why bring me here? So you never forget what they tried to hide. He nodded. I won't. She stepped closer. Will you speak their names? I don't know them. Then speak yours. He hesitated. She said, That's how it starts. He swallowed, whispered, My name is Samuel. The wind moved through the trees. She touched one of the graves. Her fingers are careful. She whispered. They never left. The nail beneath her hand turned warm. The cloth lifted slightly, as if remembering a breeze. Then it fell again. She looked at him. You're part of this now, she said. I've always been part of it. She nodded once, then stepped back into the woods and vanished. He waited by the fence where the gravel road met the split in the ridge. Quilt folded in his arms, thread still loose. Wind pushed at the corners like fingers trying to unfold it again. Dust kicked up slowly. Then he heard it. Boots. One dragging, one hitting firm. The deputy came limping up the hill. No hat. Eyes heavy. Badge still hanging. Dull and crooked. You called me out here, Eli said. I did. Eli looked down at the quilt. That one hers. No. Who then? He unfolded it. Showed him the square. 2 names stitched side by side. Eli's jaw tightened. Your name's on it too, Samuel said. Eli didn't speak. Samuel stepped forward. You stitched it. Eli shook his head. My mother did. Samuel stared. She knew. She knew. Why didn't she say anything? Eli looked out at the trees. She did. Once Samuel waited. She told my father, Eli said. He slapped her across the mouth. Told her quilting was for silence, not stories. Samuel's voice cracked. So she buried it? She stitched it. Samuel held the quilt tighter. Your name's under Joelle's. Eli nodded. I helped her with that square. You were a kid. So was Joelle. Samuel stepped closer. Did you know what your father did? Not at first. And then? I heard things. Late at night, I saw him burn cloth. Samuel stared. You never stopped him. Eli's mouth twisted. Have you ever tried stopping the sheriff in his own house? You watched. I lived. You helped. I didn't touch her, but you carried the needle. Eli's eyes filled. I wanted to remember her. Samuel whispered. You remembered quiet. Eli said nothing. Samuel turned the quilt over. This isn't about remembering. It's about showing. Eli reached out, touched the stitching. My mother stitched red thread into everything she made. Eli said, even pillows, even shirts. Samuel nodded. Like a warning. Like a wound. They stood for quite a moment. Samuel finally asked, You remember Eliza? Eli closed his eyes. She used to braid my sister's hair. She stitched her name into the barn wall. I know. Your father buried her? I don't know. Don't lie. Eli's voice dropped. I saw her dragged into the stable. I saw the governor's son ride off that night. And I said nothing. Samuel stepped back. Why? Because I still had a bed. Because I still had teeth in my mouth. Samuel clenched his jaw. She screamed. I heard. And you shut your door. Yes. Samuel looked down. You know what they did to her. Eli's voice broke. I know what they did to all of them. Samuel let the quilt fall to the ground. The thread unraveled at the edge. One stitch pulled loose. Eli bent to pick it up. Samuel stopped him. Don't. Eli looked up. You don't get to fix it. Eli straightened slowly. Then what do I do? Samuel stared at him. You help me dig. The wind changed first. Samuel stopped at the bend in the ridge. Eyes narrowed. The sky pulsed orange above the treetops. Eli limped up behind him. You see that? Samuel didn't answer. His jaw tightened. They moved fast after that. Down the slope, past the fence, through the overgrowth. Smoke hit their noses halfway there. Bitter, oily, wrong. Eli coughed. It's the barn. Samuel was already running. They cleared the last stretch of brush. Stopped. Flames licked out from the roof beams. Black smoke billowed sideways. The barn glowed like it had swallowed its own heart. Samuel shouted, No! He charged in before Eli could stop him. Inside, heat clawed at his face. The quilts were everywhere, still hanging, still swaying. But they didn't catch. He moved between them, sweat pouring, clothes brushing his shoulders like fingers trying to hold him back. He looked up. Flames had touched the rafters, but not the thread. The quilts hovered, not burning, just floating. He reached for one. The name stitched across it, Ruthie, shifted in the light like it breathed. Eli ran in, coughing hard. Get out. They're not burning. You'll die here. Samuel grabbed the nearest quilt and yanked. It came free easily, no heat. He shoved it into Eli's arms. Go. Eli stumbled back through the doorway. Samuel turned to the back wall. The large quilt, Eliza's, still hung there. Smoke curled up around it, but the cloth didn't move. He walked toward it. The wood under his boots groaned. Fire spilled through a broken board above, raining sparks. He reached the quilt, placed his hand on the stitched sun. Still cool. He whispered, I remember. The smoke thickened, rafters cracked. He turned, ran. Outside, Eli dropped to his knees, gasping. Samuel fell beside him, the quilt in his arms. They looked back together. The roof gave in. The barn collapsed inward like breath leaving a chest. Sparks burst into the sky, but not a single thread floated up. Only ash, only wood. The fire roared, then died. Later, after the embers cooled, they stepped back in, boots crunching on cinders. The beams had fallen across each other, but the floor was mostly clear. The quilts were gone. Eli whispered, They took them. Samuel didn't reply. He moved toward the back wall, kneeled down, brushed away soot with his hand. There, carved into the scorched beam, we're still waiting. Unburned, unchanged. Eli dropped beside him. Same as before, he said. No, Samuel said, deeper. He reached out, ran his fingers over the letters. His skin didn't blister. They knew. Samuel whispered, Knew what? That fire wouldn't stop what was already stitched. Eli stared at the words, then nodded. They're not asking anymore, he said. No. They're telling us. Samuel stood. I looked at the blackened sky. What now? Eli asked. Samuel looked down at the message. We answer. The morning after the fire broke, with ash drifting like gray snow across the stable yard, he stood with his shirt stiff from smoke, hair heavy with soot, and lungs that ached with every breath. The smell of charred wood lingered thick, mixed with something sharper, blood in the dirt, thread scorched into dust. He hadn't slept, not really. His body had given in to short bursts of unconsciousness on the stable floor, but his eyes opened each time the wind pushed smoke back under the rafters. The barn was a black skeleton behind him, timbers collapsed in a crooked heap. He could still see the faint outline where the quilts had hung before the fire took hold, flames licking higher than the roof could stand. But when he'd gone searching through the embers, they weren't destroyed. Not fully. They had hovered in the smoke like they belonged to something beyond burning, cloth whispering in waves above his head, before they dropped silent into the ash. Now, folded near the stable wall, one quilt lay waiting. The unfinished one, thread pulled taut and cut short at the edges. His hand hovered over it, trembling before he touched it. The locket was still in his pocket, its weight undeniable, pressing against his thigh each time he moved. From the edge of the trees, the woman in the shawl appeared again. Quiet, steady, almost spectral. He didn't hear her steps over the brittle grass. He only felt when the air shifted. She stopped a few yards from him, the shawl wrapped close. Her face was shadowed, but her eyes caught the weak morning light. "You didn't burn," he said, voice raw. "Neither did they," she answered. He let silence hang. It filled every ruined corner around them, stretched across the broken barn, threaded into the smoldering air. Finally he asked, "Who are you?" Her eyes lingered on the folded quilt. Then she lowered her shawl just enough for him to see her mouth. "The one who kept the last stitch." He frowned. "You made them." "No," she said softly, "but I finished what they began." He stepped closer. "Them?" Her gaze held him. "The girls. The ones who disappeared. The ones buried where no names were carved. Each had a stitch. Each had a thread. Their hands carried messages the governor thought he could bury. And you?" "I was the hand left behind." He stared. Words pressed hard in his chest, but wouldn't form. Only one managed to slip out. "Why?" "Because I remembered." The air tightened between them. He dropped his eyes to the quilt. His thumb traced one name already stitched into the faded cloth. His own. Above it, initials are small and faint, almost erased by time. His mother's. The woman's voice was low, almost breaking. She stitched before she disappeared. They silenced her with the others. But her stitch remained unfinished. "I carried the thread, until now." He looked up fast. "You knew her." "I sewed beside her." The woman's shawl shifted in the breeze, edges frayed. "I heard her voice in the quiet nights. I watched her hand falter before they came for her. She left me the last piece, and I carried it in silence." Anger surged hot in his throat. "The governor's family." "Yes." The deputy said his father helped. "They all helped," she cut him off. "Every man sworn to law turned the needle against the truth. They buried graves in a circle, thinking no one would notice. But the cloth remembers. The cloth carries every name they tried to erase." His fists clenched. The locket burned against his leg. He pulled it out, opened it, and showed her the crest, the lock of hair. "This was behind the hay. Tell me why." She looked down at it, face unreadable. "Because power thinks it can keep trophies. They never realized those trophies would condemn them." He shut it hard. "And what am I meant to do with it?" The woman took a step forward. Her shawl brushed the ground, sweeping ash. "You finished the quilt." He shook his head. "I don't sew." "You carry her blood, her memory." "I dig graves," he muttered. "Then dig for the living," she said, voice sharp. The words cut through him. His breath staggered. He wanted to turn away, but his feet stayed planted. He asked again, softer this time, "Why me?" Her eyes softened. "Because the last stitch was hers. And hers is yours." The silence after felt heavier than fire, heavier than loss. He bent slowly, picked up the folded quilt, and opened it across his arms. His mother's name sat unfinished, thread dangling, waiting. He stared at it until his eyes blurred. "She was the last?" he asked. "They made sure of it." He swallowed hard. "And the others?" "They wait," the woman said. "Always." He pressed his thumb against the fabric. "Still?" "Yes, still." The words sank deep. He closed his eyes, quilt pressed against his chest, breath uneven. He saw the graves in a circle, the carved message. "We're still waiting." He saw the barn burning, quilts refusing flame. He saw his mother's hand on cloth, needle paused, stitch unfinished. When he opened his eyes, the woman was closer, holding a needle thin and glinting in the weak sun. She set it in his palm. "You don't need to know how. The cloth knows." He stared at it, then at her. "What happens when it's finished?" "You'll see," she said. They stood like that for a long time. Morning deepening into noon. The quilt stretched across his arms, the needle in his palm, the woman silent at his side. Finally, he knelt by the stable wall, laid the quilt flat. Thread trembled in his fingers, rough and clumsy. But when he set the needle through, it slid like the fabric remembered the path. He pulled it, slow and uneven. Another stitch, another breath. He felt the cloth draw him in, guiding him where his mother left off. The woman watched. She didn't speak. His voice broke into silence. She sang, didn't she, while she sewed? The woman nodded. Always. He kept stitching, crooked lines, pulling tight. His breath hitched with every push of the needle. What was her song? Not words, just hums. Software like she wanted the cloth to carry them after she was gone. His eyes burned. He forced another stitch, then another. Hours passed. The day leaned heavily with heat, then cooled in the evening. His fingers ached, but he didn't stop. The quilt slowly shifted, his mother's name pulling complete under his hand. The last letter tightened, the final thread tied. When it was done, he dropped the needle. His hands shook. He whispered, "It's finished." The woman stepped forward. She touched the name lightly, reverent. Number, "It's alive." The air changed. The quilt trembled, not from wind, but from something within. The fabric seemed to breathe. Stitched names shimmered faint, as if the cloth held voices beneath it. He stepped back, chest tight. "What?" "They're speaking," she said simply. The quilt rustled. Threads moved like whispers through leaves. He thought he heard humming. Software familiar. His throat closed. "That's her." The woman nodded once. He clutched the quilt, voice breaking. "What do I do now?" Her answer came steady. "Carry it forward." "How?" "You already are." Night fell around them. Stars pressed through smoke. The stable groaned in the wind. He knew what he had to do before dawn. The next morning, he hung the finished quilt on the stable wall. Ash still clung to the rafters. Soot lined the beams, but the quilt glowed soft in the dim light. Beneath it, he took his knife, pressed into the wood, and carved the words slow and deep. "We remember." When it was done, he leaned his forehead against the wall. The quilt hung above him, steady, alive. He heard faint humming. He didn't know if it came from memory, from cloth, or from the graves waiting in the woods. He only knew it was hers, and now it was his.